I got started with Ancestry.com, filling in information that I already had about my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents. I was fortunate enough to have some genealogical information on both sides, but I did have very specific holes in my ancestry line that I wanted to fill. For instance, I was looking for information on my paternal great-grandfather, one Lucius Hubbard, as well as my maternal great-grandmother, Sally Ann Hall. Not only was I successful on both counts, but I also found living cousins in the process. As for Lucius, I found out he was somewhat of a reprobate, having had 3 different families. Legal divorces are not yet confirmed. And he was even involved in a scandal in Toledo surrounding his mistress, who became his second wife. But probably the most interesting discovery I made regarding him was to find that my grandmother had a baby sister who was born and died a year before she was born. Little Mabel had been buried in Elmwood Cemetery here in Kansas City, and upon contacting Elmwood, I found I had a friend on the board of directors, and we were able to locate her gravesite. I actually got to see the original interment card, which bore his signature as the purchaser of the plot. And as a result, we were finally able to procure a marker for the grave, and little Mabel's resting place is unknown no longer. The other great discovery that I made through Ancestry.com was on my husband's side of the family. We knew that his grandparents were vaudevillians, but we'd been stymied due to stage names and some incorrect information. Through census documents, I was able to determine that we actually had the wrong name for his great-grandmother. Once the name had been corrected, doors started flying open. It was through a combination of Ancestry.com and a few old family photos I was finally able to identify my husband's great-grandfather's birth name, and that opened the floodgates to other family members. It turns out that Eddie Shane's real name was Charlie Davison, and his family was Jewish. He married May Warden, who we thought was Mary McCarthy, and she was an Irish Catholic. Again, we found long-lost cousins in the process, as well as an infant sibling. Just last summer, we were able to locate the gravesites of both his great-grandfather's family in the Jewish cemetery outside of Chicago, as well as his great-grandmother's family in the Catholic cemetery just down the road. This was one of the most moving events of my lifetime. My husband, his brother, and I realized we were probably the first people to visit these gravesites since the last family members had been buried there back in the 30s. Once again, these people are lost no longer. My tree now contains over 3,000 people, or almost 3,000 people, and shows my lineage as well as my husband's back to William Brewster on the Mayflower. Yes, folks, it looks like I married a cousin.